Indonesia today is amongst the largest export-oriented nations around the world. It has been providing numerous products and services to almost every nation. It is a country that is well interconnected with the global economy. Its export value, as reported by Statistics Indonesia, is estimated to be around 231 billion United States dollars, making it one of the biggest in the Asian continent. This considerable sum going around the world is reported to be dominated by its mining and industrial sector, with agriculture contributing a bit to the scene. Its most dominant export products are known to be its coal, copper, steel, and palm oil, which goes to show how rich the country is in terms of natural resources. These are also joined with finished goods influenced by its natural resources. The majority of where these exports go are directed toward three nations. The largest importer of Indonesian goods is from the Chinese economy, importing about $53 billion in 2021, and only to be followed by the United States at $25 billion and Japan at $17 billion. The massive import values have brought up numerous opportunities for the Indonesian economy. According to Bank of Indonesia, from 2019 to 2021, Indonesia has even seen its trade balance to grow exponentially from a negative trade balance of approximately $1 billion in 2019 to more than $5 to $7 billion worth of surplus by the first quarter of 2022, suggesting how robust the demand has been for Indonesian goods recently, as this figure simply shows that overseas countries have been buying a lot of goods from the archipelago nation. What drives the entire $231 billion export economy of Indonesia, however, is dominated by a myriad of products, ranging from its basic commodities to finished manufacturing products and even services. What led to the possibility of Indonesia having its own strong export-oriented industries, however, is influenced strongly by the collaborative works of its public and private sector. The government's work has been continuously ambitious within its plans, as it sought to enhance the country's capabilities to become more export-oriented. This resulted in numerous outcomes as of late. Some have been applauded for the establishment of sound policies. Some, however, have been quite notorious. One of the many decisions implemented by the government was when they banned their nickel exports. This paved the way for global criticism and controversies. Analysts indicated that it would drive away foreign investors and create confusion about the government's reliability. Since back in 2014, they had also imposed a ban on ore exports, with the exact reason for banning nickel exports, but they eventually reversed their decision by 2017. However, while that may be true for ore exports, it might not be for its nickel industry. So far, having cleared its raw nickel exports, it has ultimately paved the way for the entire sector to actually benefit. If you have not heard of it yet, however, nickel exports were banned in 2020, at a time when Indonesia was the world's largest supplier of such commodities and also the world's largest holder of reserves. But since its implementation, raw nickel exports went from a $1 billion export industry to zero. The effects, however, were stunning. While it cleared all of its raw exports, it has helped push nickel-based finished products instead, meaning rather than exporting raw nickel, they went on to a more high-value industry. This has made many domestic and foreign investments place capital in order for them to manufacture nickel and nickel-related products inside the country rather than buy it off as a commodity. Now, the growth of exports, however, was not always this big. It was only until recently that the country leaned in on that export-oriented mindset. Data from Statistics Indonesia has shown that the exports in 2005 were only registered to be $66 billion. A far-flung, massive growth since 2021 had been over $219 billion, without including its oil and gas industry. In contrast, we have experienced Indonesia's rise in becoming an export-oriented nation. These figures, as numerous analysts point out, are even going to become more significant. As of late, however, they are still dominated by either the richness of natural resources, the agricultural status, or even non-climate-friendly products. As reported by the BPS, Indonesia's $231 billion exports in 2021 are divided into 9 major categories. For simplicity's sake, we will discuss the most significant 3. Upon diving into this data, we have discovered that the largest export sector is known as the industrial sector. While it may sound like a high-value term, it is actually driven mainly by the country's natural resources. As reported, the sector has exported a whopping $177 billion, making it the largest destination. This is driven by the country's palm oil industry, steel, and textile industry. These three already contribute around $50 billion to the overall export of the industrial sector. The sheer size of this industry, however, has brought in a plague of problems. Steel and palm oil production are two products that are known to be highly polluting, which poses deep trouble for Indonesia, since the world is slowly transitioning to becoming climate-friendly. The possibility that this industry may slow down in the coming decades is almost inevitable. The same industrial sector also has data that tells us that only a few exports are even directed from technological goods, approximately only $12 billion worth as of 2021. Opinions may vary, but in the coming future, these will largely need to change. Furthermore, Indonesia again is still reliant on its mining sector, its coal, copper, and lignite exports accounting for over $35 billion worth in 2021. While its exports may not be sustainable in the coming decades, these are still the best options for making money. However, we must take note that the country still needs to shift its entire export industries. It may need to follow the likes of the tigers of Asia, where they were able to rise exponentially because of their exposure to high-value export goods. Getting there, on the other hand, is going to be difficult. Just like its ban on nickel exports, it can have a positive or negative outcome depending on how they implement it. But do take note that while Indonesia still is not on par with those of the Asian tigers, its exportation of finished goods has consistently increased over the years. Data has shown that the overall exports of finished goods have seen a rise from $131 billion in 2020 to over $171 billion in 2021. But ultimately, what is going to matter, whether finished or raw, is if it really is going to be good for the entire economy and society. It will be necessary from here on out that the balance of profit and the protection of its environment will play a huge role. Since we are very much aware of the fact that Jakarta and other megacities around the world are now experiencing unprecedented problems related to rising water levels. Moreover, there is even an urgent need to upgrade Indonesia's overall ports, and even the need to diversify is also necessary. The ports of Java Island still dominate the large parts of the overall value of the exports. In 2021, Java alone accounted for close to $100 billion worth of value, only to be followed by Sumatra at $63 billion. The ports of Java, on the other hand, are also primarily directed to only one port, namely the port of Tanjung Priok, the country's busiest and even reported being the most advanced seaport. Yet it is reported by numerous news outlets that it is the least efficient port in all of Southeast Asia. This means that Indonesia could have gotten more exports or earned a lot more from its exports had its congested port been able to handle the capacity. Well, thankfully it has seen an expansion recently, one that will be called the New Priok, which will be fully operational by 2023. But as Indonesia's products keep going up, the need for better and more ports around the country is going to be necessary. Ultimately, as we have seen, if Indonesia keeps this up, it will obviously become a global phenomenon as an export-oriented nation. But as we noted earlier, the need for it to balance profit and cater to its environment is going to play a crucial role in the coming future. The need to diversify its exports and not just rely on its commodities and natural resources are also important. Establishing itself as an outpost for becoming a manufacturing-driven economy by exporting high-value products will indeed establish the country to become one of the economic superpowers of the world. However, the success of what comes next will be largely dependent on the government's action and might affect all the private corporations that are intertwined within the exporting of goods. Whether it will happen or not, on the other hand, is going to be difficult to say, but so far, if Indonesia's plans that it has laid out are going to be executed properly, then we may indeed see that one day Indonesia will rise up. Anyway, what do you think?